Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Hayley.
After meeting online, we became international best friends who bonded over how hard it is to find success in the entertainment industry.
Join us and our celebrity co-authors as they help us write the book on how to make it.
And, more importantly, uncover what making it even means.
Hello, my name is Jim Field-Smith, and when I grew up, I wanted to be a trombone player.
We've never had one of those.
Well, that's because a lot of trombone players get their dreams squashed at an early age.
By who?
By probably quite sensible people. It's not the most social instrument of all time, is it?
Do you still play the trombone?
I've never played the trombone. Is the most important thing you need to know.
Okay.
Yeah, I have never ever played the trombone. I don't think I've even played it. I don't think I've even had a go on it.
Weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
How did this come about?
My dad used to be in the army, and we used to live on army bases all around the world, and the army bands always march around practicing, and they always used to march past our house, and for some reason I was fixated on the trombone player, I guess the most sort of one of the more visually interesting instruments, and I just used to, apparently, I don't remember this, but apparently I used to march up and down pretending to play the trombone. And then at some point, I didn't continue that journey. I do sometimes walk around pretending to play the trombone, you know.
As we all do.
There's still time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Well,
Emily, follow that up.
Listen, I like it because sometimes, and it's totally fine, because congrats to them, people will interview actors and the actors will say, and I wanted to be an actor. And then we're like, okay, great. But it's always nice when someone wants to do something, especially when they never actually did it at all.
Yeah. I mean, there is still time. I don't want to rule it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's not rule it in and let's not rule it out.
No, I think so. I think you should.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Well, we move into two slightly surprising facts that we found out about you on the internet.
Oh, God. They're definitely true if they're on the internet.
Absolutely.
Well, that I was going to say. I don't know if I think this is true because I read it, I think, on your website.
Oh, wow.
So
might be true, yeah.
I don't know when the last time the website was updated. But you used to do voice acting?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that? Can you still do any voices? Was that
yeah, so how did that come about? So I used to do a lot of comedy. I used to be in a comedy sketch group, and I guess mainly as a result of doing that and people coming to see our shows. And then the thing with voiceover work is once you do one or two, you often get more. So people used to like me, agencies used to like me because I could do multiple voices. So they could book me for a session and then they'd be like, oh, while you're here, could you just do this other one? And then, or could you do this other one? So I guess I was being exploited.
Potentially.
But I used to love it because the best thing about voice work is it doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah.
You can just rock up at a studio and, knock out a bunch of, it was mainly commercials and stuff, but I was the voice of a slug for a nationwide campaign to give up eating so much salt in their diet.
Oh my God.
I was the voice of a popular gambling TV channel. Yeah, loads. I used to love it though. I used to love it, and I'd happily do more. There's nothing stopping me.
No. You've got to dabble back into that.
Yeah, that and the trombone playing are two things that I feel like I really need to pick up. So yeah, that is true.
Nice.
That fact is true.
Love it. Mine is it's not that much of a secret because it's on your Instagram, but you're doing the London Marathon this year.
I am.
Have you done it before?
Oh man, you've unlocked a rabbit hole, if that's a phrase.
It's fine.
I have done the London Marathon before, but I'll try and give you the short version of this story. Basically, a week before the London Marathon in 2020, I broke my ankle the week before the marathon, having trained for 6 months.
Perfect.
It's ideal. And they rolled over my place to the next year. And then there was a thing called the coronavirus. I don't know whether you guys had that. Yeah, so then that year they made everyone run the London Marathon on their own, which was social distancing gone mad.
That's
crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. So I ran the London Marathon on my own in October of that year in the rain. With
it's
a
not
couple,
quite the same.
It's not the same, and so
it's
it's been
the same
sort
atmosphere.
It's not the same. Although, well, yeah, you make your own atmosphere. I think in these things.
Yeah,
Obviously, I was pretending to play the trombone for the whole of the distance. Yeah, it was. It was pretty bleak. So I've been sort of harboring. This, even though I have the finisher's medal and all that, I've been harboring this ambition to finish it. So every year I apply. And this year, I'm actually a friend of mine who runs a charity asked me if I wanted to run it for them, and I was like, "Yeah, don't even care what the charity is. Let's go." So I'm running that in April. So I'm just sort of getting ready for that now. It's very exciting.
Love it. Keen runner then.
Very keen runner, and it's something that I guess I've been able to keep up with. Manage with my career just about. I ran a marathon last year in October, just as we were finishing up Hijack, and it was a bit stupid really, because I was like trying to finish the show and also train, and that's not fun because you're having to get up at 4 a.m. to go out and do horrible runs. So this time around I'm hoping to do it in a slightly more sustainable way, I think would be the right phrase. Yeah,
that sounds good. Yeah, it becomes a bit of a full-time job in itself, doesn't it, the training, if you want to be able to enjoy it on the day. Yeah,
but that's sort of the reason, I suppose that's kind of the reason I do it really. Like I sort of put these dates in the diary because it gives me something to structure my because the thing is with like what I do for a living, it's not always easy to stay fit and healthy, and or rather it's very easy to not be fit and healthy if you're not careful. Such a demanding job for loads of different departments, but I think for directing I am on my feet all day long, and sometimes operating camera as well, and it's quite it's physically quite demanding in ways that you sometimes don't even realize. And if you don't stay on top of your health and fitness, you can really run aground very quickly. I've seen people get really sick. So everyone thinks I'm insane for doing it, but you'll find when you start doing stuff like that, you increasingly find other people that are doing it too. We have a secret handshake.
I've noticed more and more runners on sets. Like I think it's really kind of taking off a little bit. The last show I was on, there was a little run club.
Oh, okay. People doing it on rap?
Yeah.
We had a 5-a-side football team on Hijack, and we've had various things on various shows over the years.
It's such an intense environment and a little like microcosm of society, I think.
It's exactly that. It's a completely artificial sort of Truman Show world that everyone gets thrust into and expected to just immediately get along, and it's the pressures of time and money are the pressures of what people expect out of a show are getting bigger and bigger, and the budgets and the schedules are not necessarily growing with those ambitions. And there's some pretty horrific statistics unfortunately coming out of our business at the moment. And I think there was something I saw today, in fact, that 75% of people in our business have considered leaving the industry this year, and that's not really acceptable. What are we doing about that? And I think part of the issue is people don't feel valued. I think half the battle is making people feel valued. It's usually the same in most jobs. I find my sister works in the NHS, and she often talks about how when doctors go on strike or when nurses go on strike, it's never really about money. It's usually about conditions, and it's usually about wanting to feel valued and wanting to feel properly resourced, because no one becomes a nurse to become rich. People do it because they want to do it. And I think I would say most people in the film business don't get into it to become wealthy. They get into it because it's like, it seems like a fun job.
Yeah.
And they like movies themselves, or they like TV themselves, and maybe they want to progress, and become a director or a producer or whatever. But I don't really know anybody who has succeeded, who has got into the industry for that purpose and succeeded.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it gives kind of an unstable feeling in the film and TV industry as well, where everybody's freelance, because it's...
Am I hearing a guitar, or am I getting...
I'm so sorry, it's my doorbell.
Your doorbell?
It's
Why is your doorbell a flamenco guitarist?
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's my husband taking my daughter to musical theatre.
Well, that is an appropriate doorbell for that.
I was going to say, it's just Haley's aura just makes noises.
I was like, oh, okay, I'm having a stroke. Great.
Oh my God.
To hear that was your doorbell was a great relief.
I'll take us into Hijack, and this is from another deep dive. So this is from an interview you did
I don't even know how to make it go away.
It's fine. It's okay. It'll end eventually, right?
I think you have to leave your family. That's the only way.
I think so. You know what? I'm kind of down with that at the moment. I'm kind of over it. Sorry, that was harsh.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
I'm tired.
So in a TIFF interview in 2011, I'm paraphrasing, you said something along the lines of like, I don't know how I do anything else other than comedy. And then we've somehow found ourselves in Hijack. How did we get here?
Do you know what? I think the reason we've ended up where we are is that what I was doing in comedy was always trying to push at the edges of it and see where I could push it into different genres. So push comedy into different genres. So I started out making short films and commercials and in my sketch group, as I said. But like the moment I started working in film and TV, the first thing I made was a big movie called She's Out of My League for DreamWorks.
I love that movie.
Thank you. So that was the first thing I made, which is definitely a out and out comedy. Like there's no sort of genre within that movie other than comedy. I just tried to make that movie the funniest it could be. And also I was learning how to make movies whilst making that movie. So that was an interesting experience. But as soon as I sort of got that under my belt, I was like, I guess you'd hear this from a lot of directors. You just want to do something different. You want to challenge yourself, or you sort of feel like, I've done that. I've spent a year, 2 years making something of that ilk. Now I want to make something of a different ilk. So the second movie I made was a movie called Butter, which is set in the world of butter carving in the Midwest. Very toothy political comedy, satire. To me, that was like, I want to go from doing this very big commercial movie to doing this much smaller, more challenging movie with a much more challenging subject matter. And then you can sort of chart that progress across every project, really. Like it sort of slides. I moved into doing TV soon after that. And, the first thing I did in TV, although it was a comedy on paper, because I'd not really made any TV shows, I'd gone from doing short films to giant Hollywood feature films. I'd sort of leapfrogged over television. Beautiful doorbell. I'd leapfrogged over television, and so when I went back into television, as it were, I was like, well, I only know how to make movies. So I was making this show called The Wrong Mans, which is about two guys that work in an office that get caught up in this criminal conspiracy. Very funny show, very funny script, very funny actors. And I wanted it to be funny, but I also was like, the worst thing we could do is make this a sitcom or make it look like a sitcom. Because on the page, it read a little bit like a sitcom. But James and Matt, who wrote and starred in that show, were very keen for it not to look like a sitcom. And I said, well, I don't know how to make something look like a sitcom because I've only made big feature films. So although we only had like a BBC comedy budget, which is not very much, I just did everything I could to make that show as cinematic and dramatic as possible. And it just, for me, I was like, I found a bit of a sweet spot while I was making that show of like, oh, this is great where you can sort of have your cake and eat it. It can be funny, but it can also look good, and it can have moments of real danger and real heart as well. So everything I've done since then has almost been just like a further push down that road. So I made a show called Stag that was about a bunch of guys on a bachelor party who start getting murdered one by one. Still a comedy, but again, I just wanted the non-comedic elements of it to be real and scary and funny in their own way, but also I wanted it to look amazing and all that stuff and sound amazing. So that's sort of the long-winded answer to like, that's how you get to Hijack. Is everything I do is often an iteration or a sort of a reflection of the thing that's gone before it. It's so, you know, I made a show called Criminal for Netflix, which is a police drama set entirely in an interrogation room. When we made Hijack, we talked about that being criminal with wings. Because we were like, okay, we've done this environment where we've told an entire drama without leaving the space of an interrogation room. I wonder if we can do a whole TV show set on an aeroplane. You know, so you sort of, when you start to think about it like that, it's like me as a filmmaker sort of pushing myself, and I'm often quite contrary. So someone will go like, oh my God, Criminal, you were stuck in one room for 2 or 3 years making that show. You must want to go out and do something really different and expensive. And sometimes when I hear people say things like that, I go the other way and say, oh, okay, is that what you think? Is it? All right, well, actually, I'm going to do the opposite of that, actually. And I'm going to put myself in an even more confined space. So congratulations. You know, if you look at season 2 of Hijack versus season 1 of Hijack, the same is true, right? So it was like, okay, so season 1's in an airplane. What's the exact opposite of that? Part of you would say, well, the exact opposite of a confined space would be like, let's go and be on a desert island or whatever. But I was like, no, let's bury the character underground and let's keep all the DNA of the show, but let's make it like almost like a mirror image of season 1. Hijack has a lot of humor in it, and it's meant to have a lot of humor in it. And I think I'm always satisfied, like at the premiere in New York, and Emily, you were there, I think. It's always satisfying when people laugh because you're meant to. So I'm like, oh, that's funny, is it? Okay. Didn't think that bit was funny. People laugh in the right places. And I don't want it to be a po-faced, like depressing tone poem. You know, I want it to be entertaining. And there's a fine line between being terrified and being amused. And that, you know, psychologically, those reactions are two very close together. I guess there's comedy in everything I do, and I sort of, I don't know if I could make something that didn't have some levity in it. I think I would go mad.
It's what makes it great to watch as well. It's it's got a lightness to it that you're not expecting sometimes.
You can make a show like Hijack, and it could be completely humorless, right? And I think when season 1 came out, people who don't know my work, when you look at Hijack as a proposition, with the marketing for season 1, and you see Idris Elba, it's called Hijack, he's on an aeroplane, your brain is telling you it's kind of B-movie concept. It's going to be lots of like fighting and explosions and guns and stuff. And I think one of the reasons season 1 had the success it did was because it subverted people's expectations of what it was, and it hopefully delivered on all the thrills, but also it went into a more human space and a more vulnerable space as well. And you know, I think without that show, those shows become meaningless. You know, those moments become meaningless. You don't care about. It meant that by the time we got to episode 7 of season 1, and I had to figure out how I was going to, spoiler alert, land a plane. You know, I was thinking logistically, how am I going to do that? You're worrying about how you're going to achieve that in a way that isn't shit, basically.
Yeah.
But the benefit of a TV show versus a movie is that if you've done your homework, then you should care about all the characters on the plane. And so actually, yes, I had to figure out how to show the visual spectacle of a plane, giant plane, doing a crash landing. But I also knew my biggest special effect was having a family in the back of the plane holding hands. So that's all I'm ever really aiming for, is like, I want it to feel human, and sometimes human means funny.
In terms of like the twists and turns within it, sometimes when I'm watching things that are very twisty, I just think there's twists for the sake of it. And yours all feel very earned. Is there anything that you do in particular to make, like, to earn those twists?
That's kind of you to say that. I mean, I think we try not to be exploitative with the way we make the show, and
I hate that.
yeah, it's do you know what? It's a really hard show to write. I'm not going to lie to you.
I can imagine.
It's really hard, and you should see some of the moments in the writers' room where everyone is just banging their heads, literally banging their heads on different bits of furniture, going like, because you sort of, it has to evolve constantly. Every scene, every moment has to push the dilemma forward. It has to push Sam further into a problem. You might find that after 2 or 3 very successful days of figuring out and all getting very excited about some storyline, oh yeah, and then Sam ends up, A, B, C. Then you're like, oh no, but then we can't. Then we've gone down a bit of a cul-de-sac dramatically, and then we can't. So you have to then reverse him back out of that. And I guess what I'm saying is you end up trashing a lot of work in the writer's room, because it's just like, that feels great for one episode, but that's going to really screw us up later on. And we've got, we want this to sustain and build across 8 hours. It's got to feel real. It's got to feel like all of these decisions are happening in real time. Like the show is never more successful than when the camera is 4 inches from Idris's face, and you can just see his eyes darting because he's just been put into some completely impossible position, or something that he thought was going to happen hasn't happened, or vice versa. And I love it when the show feels live and you feel like he's thinking live about what he's going to say next. I suppose you've got to take it back to a real place and put yourself in a situation to a certain extent. Yeah, I guess it's, for all of Hijack's extremities, everything's got to come from a place of truth, really.
And you also managed to create a show where we're rooting in season 2 for the hijacker, which seems impossible, and like to the point where like I didn't want the hostages to get off, and was like, no, everyone stay on and listen to the hijacker. And then you're, they've got the police who are just doing their jobs, but you almost don't want them to be able to do what they think they need to do. And that seems impossible, but somehow you guys managed to write it in a way. Yeah.
I think that's what gave us, I think that's what gave us the runway to be able to have all of the twists and turns of season 2. Because if we'd just gone, okay, we're back with Sam is a passive entity, on another method of transport, and lightning strikes twice. We knew audiences were going to be thinking that going into it. So of course we were already trying to think, well, how can we subvert that? How can we play into what audiences are expecting and then flip it on its head? Once we'd sort of decided, well, hang on, what if Sam is ostensibly the bad guy or playing the bad guy? That actually opens up a giant sort of trunk of possibilities, because he's having to constantly convince everybody that he's the bad guy, and we know eventually that he's definitely not the bad guy, but he has to continue convincing people that he is. In season 2, he's the architect to a certain extent of everything that's happening, although he's being sort of pushed through it, which means that he can constantly change the rules, because he's dictating the terms of everything.
Did you hit on any kind of unexpected problems or challenges moving from a season 1 to a season 2? Because there was obviously going to be these issues with the writing of it, of what audiences would expect. Was there anything that came up that you just didn't see coming?
Look, to be honest, every single day. We shot for 136 days. And
it's a lot.
And we're in post for a year, and like every single day, to answer your question, every single day there's something that's like, god damn it, like either because you're trying to figure out how to do something differently, because you feel like there's this weird thing in when you're making a show like Hijack, where you're largely in a handful of precincts, you're physically, as a film crew, in that set for extended periods of time. You go into this really strange state where you're like, have we done this already? Like every day is basically like Groundhog Day. And you're like, didn't we just shoot this scene like yesterday? And it was like, or didn't we do this shot already? Or didn't we kind of have this beat already? I feel like we're just repeating ourselves. And you really have to kind of go, no, we've just been shooting this scene for like 3 days, or this is a little bit similar to something we did in a previous episode or in a previous block. That's the hardest thing, I think, with my sort of showrunner hat on, as opposed to when I'm sort of directing the show and like physically directing the scenes. With my showrunner hat on, I have to sit back a bit more and think, are we telling this story in a way that's varied and exciting and engaging and visceral and all of these things that I want the show to be?
I want a spinoff with Otto and Sam, like a Hobbs and Shaw. Otto's my favorite person.
Yeah. There are these YouTube videos of people in London running. So basically there are certain points on the London Tube where you can get off the train and sprint and get to the next station in time to get back on the same train.
Oh,
yeah.
I think Moorgate is one of them, or Aldgate, I can't remember, and it's to do with like, when the train underground is kind of looping, but there's a direct route above ground where you can sprint.
Okay.
And there are these amazing videos on YouTube of people trying to do it and like just making it. And so they'll put one camera in the train and one camera, like a body worn camera, and you see it split, and then they sort of get together. And when we were writing season 2, I was like, we should definitely have an episode where Sam sends. We hadn't cast Otto at this point, but we were like, it'd be great to have a moment where Sam sends the driver to do some mission, or the driver sends Sam to do a mission, and Sam has to get back on the train by a certain point. So we were looking into that, and we were looking at, in Berlin, where are there places where that's possible, and there are places where it's technically possible. And actually, we never quite found a way to have a sort of story reason to do it. It just felt like we were just trying to jam it in for the sake of it, so we never found a good place for it. But there's a vestige of it left in the show, because, and it makes me laugh every single time, I kept this kind of running theme in the show of Otto is constantly looking for ways to escape. And every time Sam says like, oh, what's that, Otto, what's that door over there? And there's one in episode 2 where Sam says, Otto, what's that door over there? And Otto says, oh, that's a door, and it goes through the station. And then he starts getting really excited. He goes, oh, and it goes up to the street. And if we go through there, and Sam says, Otto, we're not escaping. And it always makes me laugh, that scene. And then I was like, we've got to have this constant refrain of Otto's constantly trying to get away. And it pays off in the finale in a way that hopefully is very satisfying, where Otto has a chance to leave and he doesn't take it.
Yeah.
And he actually goes back. So it kind of, I love Christian, who plays Otto, so much. And do you know what? That was one of the ways one of the things we learned from season 1 was Sam needing to have a foil or someone to kind of bounce off. And in season 1, various people sort of took that role. So Hugo, who's the guy that sits next to him in first class, kind of took that role for most of the show, I suppose. But then obviously Sam sort of befriends the hijackers essentially in season 1, and obviously their sort of Stuart becomes his sort of foil in a weird way. And actually Idris said this. He said, if we're going to do another season, then I've got to have someone to kind of bounce off. And to our earlier point, like, it's got to be funny as well. Like, there's no point in that not being funny. Like, it's a funny premise. A driver who has basically been blackmailed because he's got a weakness. We never really go into it in the show, but our sort of writer's room theory about Otto was that you learn in the show that he's been suspended, and it's only little details, but we wanted to show that this was a vulnerable guy and who got preyed on by the organizers of the hijacking. So we reckoned that he'd probably got into some gambling debt, was pulling too many shifts to try and pay it back, or was missing shifts, and then he got suspended. And then obviously the organizers of the hijacking were looking for a weak point, and they needed a driver. And so they sort of recruited him. He doesn't have a gun to his head. He's doing it because he himself is not perfect, and it leads to some funny and very touching conversations between the two of them, because Otto doesn't really want to be there. But then the more he sort of connects with Sam and the more he understands how bad Sam's plight is, the more he kind of begrudgingly realizes he's going to have to go along with it. And then by the end of it, he sort of becomes full hero, which, I was really pleased to be able to take Otto to that point, from coward to hero, basically.
If you ever do She's Out of My League too, it should be starring Otto.
I mean, firstly, Christian would be delighted with that.
I just want him to find love and be happy, and I just love him.
It's so funny. We had this because I'm an absolute stickler for like technical detail and stuff, and I want it all to be. I just don't want anyone to be like picking holes in stuff, and so we do a huge amount of research. And I also want the actors. So he's playing a train driver, right? And Christian Nater, the actor, he's not a train driver. He's never driven a train in his life. But if you are a train driver on the Berlin U-Bahn, you're doing that every single day. Every single button, every single control is muscle memory, right? You're not looking down at your dashboard going, doors, which is the doors, So we had this with the plane on season 1. Like we made sure that the actors in season 1, they spent time with real airline pilots. We like trained them in where everything was in the cockpit. Thankfully, in an airliner, pilots don't actually physically do that much in the cockpit. So when you see on TV shows pilots doing all this, it's bullshit, basically. And my DP is a giant aviation nut as well. But he was like really hot on it. So, but when it came to season 2, and it's like, I said to Christian, we're going to get an ex-driver over from Germany to actually spend time with you, because we designed our driver's cab as a perfect working replica of the real thing. So if you were to go into a driver's cab of a train in Berlin, it would look exactly the same. All the controls, everything.
Incredible.
And they all work. Like everything is physical. I don't want fake buttons. Like it's all real. It's all mechanical. And so we got this driver called Detlef, who used to drive the Berlin U-Bahn, to come over, and we brought him over to England. We brought him onto our set, and he just was like, this is incredible. You've basically built my old train. And then we said, I want you to basically, in as short a space of time as possible, bring Christian up to a level where he's doesn't have to look down at what he's doing. He's just reaching for things and doing it, because I just want it to feel like second nature. And so Detlef spent this time with Christian getting him up to speed. And then for the first few days of filming, I said to Detlef, just stay with us just for a few days, watch on the monitor, and just give me a nudge if you think something's right, or just go and have a little word in Christian's ear after a take to say, oh, maybe don't do that, or maybe do this. And Detlef went on to set after the first take. Just literally the first thing we did, Detlef was straight on. This wouldn't happen like that. You wouldn't touch this. And Christian was very patient and was like, okay, because Christian wanted it to be right too. So Christian's like, okay, yeah, very good, very good. They're both German, by the way, but they're both speaking to each other in English, because there's English people around, and Germans are incredibly polite about that. And even when they were getting into the technical stuff, there's 2 German people speaking to each other in English about something that they can't really find the right words for. And you just think, just talk to each other in German, it's fine. But anyway, Detlef kept going on and kept stepping onto the set. And after about 4 or 5 takes, I just heard, through my cans, Christian say to Detlef, yes, I understand that, Detlef, but it's a fucking movie. And I was like, okay, well, I think we've reached tipping point. I think that's probably time to send Detlef home. And but we were asking, the script was asking for the driver to do something that the driver wouldn't 100% do in real life. Yeah. And those are the points where you're like, sometimes you have to diverge a little bit from reality. But
he could have been like a stunt double, and you cut, and it's just a completely different set of hands.
Yes, really hairy. Yeah. Like with a French polish.
Yeah.
Christian's amazing though. He's so naturally funny. And also, by the way, that character has to spend the entire time looking worried, essentially.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's like, and I was thinking,
a lot to ask of someone.
And
like sweaty.
Whenever we were cutting scenes, there was always a reaction shot to go to of Christian that didn't feel, and it always felt fresh. Like it was like, how is he in episode? I was cutting episode 7, and I was like, how is Otto still giving worried but it still feels new and fresh, like 7 episodes into the show. But yeah, he does sort of get sweatier and sweatier as the show goes on. But yeah, bless him.
I've got another one to put you on your toes a little bit, Jim. So this is obviously a huge show, quite high stakes for you as a no pressure. But do you ever get imposter syndrome?
I had such a weird trajectory. I didn't go to film school. I didn't grow up wanting to be a director. I wanted to be a trombone player. We've covered this.
Of course.
And, I wasn't even running around with a camera making short films. You often hear about that. It wasn't particularly sporty growing up. I studied politics at university.
Cool.
I got into comedy because I was just like, some mates were doing it, and I was like, yeah, that seems like fun. And then that sketch group, which started out as like a side project, suddenly we're at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and then next thing we know, we're nominated for a Perrier Award. I was like, it's just starting to not even direct bits and pieces, but just sort of being more and more involved in other mates' things, and then directed a short which George wrote. And again, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to direct this short film so that I can become a big director. I was just like, I'm just going to direct this short film because it seems fun. And that short, for a bunch of reasons, was seen by quite a lot of people. It was a British film with a British kid in it. It was short. It was like 2 minutes long, so you could watch the whole thing easily. And it essentially ended with a joke, and so it was memorable. I got like so much interest off the back of that short. It was like preposterous. Like, why am I getting phone calls from like LA, from managers and producers and people? And this guy called me up. He did actually end up becoming my manager for a while. Called me up one day and was like, "Look, you could be. Do you want to direct a feature film?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, I was like in my crappy little office in Soho, and it was raining outside. And I was like, he was like, "Yeah, like you could come to Hollywood and direct a feature film." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I've never directed anything. Like, I've just done one short film. Like, of course I can't come to Hollywood." I was like 27 or something. I was like, "Of course I can't do that." And he was like, "Yeah, there's a complete lack of young, interesting comedy directors right now. Particularly, Hollywood's at a point where it's starting to take more chances on people." And he was right. And that's the maddest thing. Like, he ended up being right. I don't know to this day whether he was just like completely gambling, but it ended up becoming true. Then it was just a case of the right project came along, and suddenly it was like, you're on a shortlist to direct this, this giant movie at DreamWorks. I'm like, what are you talking about? This makes no sense at all. And that movie got rushed into production because it was there was the writer's strike and the actors' strike.
Yeah.
So we needed to wrap it before the actors' strike started. So I got really lucky because DreamWorks had this kind of small movie, by their standards, small movie, by my standards, absurdly huge movie. They had a script that they were really happy with and didn't really need too much work. They had Jay Baruchel attached in the lead, who was just coming off Tropic Thunder for them. And it was like a $25 million movie, which is not too risky for a studio at that time. Decent producers. Literally all they needed was a director. And they said that DreamWorks said to the producer, Jimmy Miller, "Go and get a director and we'll greenlight this movie." And so in a way, the job was mine to lose because I flew out, had some good meetings. Turned out I wasn't a complete useless idiot. And they were like, and then I got hired. So by the time I'm standing on set, which was not that long after the point where I got hired, really only a few months, I remember standing on set on the first day, and we started with some relatively simple scene, as you often do. But I just remember suddenly looking around at like hundreds of crew and 2 cameras with 35 mil, just dollars just burning through them. And we just did like a couple of takes. I was just like, this is mad. And I had this incredible producer on the show called David Haushalter, who was a very experienced line producer. He's now he worked with Will Ferrell and loads of people, and he's very, very, very experienced in comedy. And he just said to me, "Look, it's no different to the short film." By that point, I'd made 2 short films. And he said, "It's no different to the short films you've made." He said, "How long did it take you to shoot your first short film?" I said, "1 day." He said, "Well, this is just 30 of those days in a row." He said, "You're going to have the same problems. You're going to have location issues, light issues, performance issues. You're going to be feeling stressed. He said, but it's a marathon. It's just 30 of those. My second short film, I think we shot it in 2 or 3 days. And so that's all I did. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. I was just like, okay, day one. Okay, get to the end of day one. Okay, and literally just was doing that. I never really had that moment of like rabbit in the headlights. Oh my God, what am I doing? Because I never had a chance to stop and think that. And it's, I would say I have it more probably these days than I did when I was starting out, because I've got the benefit of maturity and sort of looking back at my career a little bit from the sort of where we are, the midpoint of my career or whatever you want to call it. Like I'm looking back at the first chunk of my career and thinking, wow, I was lucky to be so naive.
Yeah.
Because if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have made the first 3 or 4 things I made. Because it was the confidence of naivety, basically, just not realizing what I was getting myself in for.
I was gonna. My next question was gonna be essentially what you just answered, which was if there was a time where you looked around and went, "Oh my God, what am I doing?"
Yeah. I mean, look, it's sometimes there are days where it sort of creeps in a little bit. And you're like, no, I can't. When you're starting out as a director, you think your job is to be decisive and to show leadership by being like, I want this and we're doing that. And I was never particularly like that, but I do see it in a lot of younger directors. I see this kind of mistake of, we're going to make our days, we're going to wrap early. And that's because I'm going to be so decisive and I'm going to be in a meeting and I'm going to say, I want this, this, and this. And actually no good creativity comes out of that process. And also you're going to end up not finding the happy accidents. What I try to do now as a director is I turn back to people and say, what do you think? And sometimes you get people looking at you like, why are you asking me? Like, I'm the director, you're the director. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you think? I mean, I can tell you what I think, but I'm more interested to know what you think. Because I have to think of a million things all the time. I have to answer a million questions all day long. And yet people expect you to have answers for things. And often I do have the answer. But when I don't have the answer, what I try and do is say, I don't know. And I think I try and encourage younger directors coming up to say, I don't know more, because I was like, you've got amazing people around you. A lot of the people, when you're a young director, your HODs are usually way more experienced than you are. They've usually worked on many, many more hours of filmmaking than you have. If you look at a pyramid of people that work in film and TV, the people at the top have made the least amount of shows. And that's very true on a film set. Like camera crew, for example, just to pick one random department, all they do is make TV shows all day long, 300 days a year. So you've seen everything. You've seen every kind of terrible person. You've seen every kind of good person. You've worked on shows that you wouldn't really watch yourself. You've worked on stuff that you love, but you don't want to get carried away. And all of these people have the benefit of way more experience than you do. And so if you're in a hole, the better thing to do is to turn around to everyone and be like, what do you guys think? And sometimes they'll say, I don't know either. And then you can figure it out together. Yeah. But sometimes they'll be like, well, I was thinking maybe you should do this. Or what if you tried this? And you're like, that's great. Let's do that.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I always think that is the mark of a really good director when I'm on set, I think. And yeah, just having that confidence to be able to rely on your departments a little bit. I sometimes wonder why directors sometimes have different departments if they're going to do everything themselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like, I think it's good life advice, actually. Like, I think anyone that is like super decisive always worries me a little bit, because you're like, what? How can you be so definitive about that? Because why not just temper it by saying, I'm not sure, but here's what I think. But like this age of like people, and I realize this is incredibly ironic what I'm about to say, but this age of people giving out advice on the internet in incredibly confident ways, particularly like, fitness, health, you just
relationship ones are the worst.
Oh my god like and it's like life is not black and white like that. And I think film sets are dreadful for everyone. Just feels like they need this to be moving forward all the time, and everyone's terrified about money and losing the light.
That's it.
And it's like, right, but if you just sort of robot your way through the day, going like this, no that, no this, no that, then okay, you might make your day, you might wrap an hour early, whatever, but is what you're making any good? Like, does it have any humanity to it? Like, did everyone have a good time making it, or did everyone just feel like they were being told what to do the whole time, and no one was investing any creativity in it? So I just sort of think, why did we all get into it in the first place if we're all just going to stand around and be told what to do like it's the army? It's not the army, and people like to pretend it's the army sometimes, but it isn't.
That's it. With all that in mind, what's your definition of making it?
And I know I did ask you this with Idris.
Yeah.
Do you want me to remind you what you said and maybe expand, or
no, I'm sure I probably said something about, like, I think if you think you've made it, then you probably haven't, or you probably should be taken out and shot if you start telling people you've made it.
Can you imagine?
I mean, some people do have that energy. And like I said, they should be taken out and shot. I do sometimes think we've made it. That is a thought that I have to myself sometimes. Like, there are people that I've worked with consistently over the years. And actually, there's a group of people on Hijack, for example, who've, worked across both seasons. And I know how hard making that show is. And I've, it's taken its toll on me in lots of different ways. And it's taken a huge amount of effort from a huge number of people. And I am humbled by the work that my friends and collaborators put into the show. And I do sometimes think to myself, we've made it. Like, and there was a moment in season 2, which, as we're talking, the episode hasn't aired yet. So, but in the finale, this won't spoil too much, but in the finale of season 2, the train ends up above ground in a train depot. And the planning that went into that sequence and the risks we took, although it was very safe, the risks we took in planning for 2 years for that to be the culmination, and having to have the confidence and the stupidity to go, no, we are going to pull that off. So we're going to write towards that. And all of the microscopic decisions that you make every single day about everything on the show, like deciding to build the train and deciding to build the train as a replica of a real train, because I knew that on that day we were going to have to bring a real train out of a tunnel and it was going to have to match perfectly our train, which we've shot the inside of already. And all of it, and that's just one example. And we were shooting that sequence. We had to shoot it at night because it was a real train depot.
Yeah.
We shot it across 3 nights. And on one of the nights, and of course we had 2 drones in the air as well. So normally, you're looking for places to hide the crew and you think, well, we're not going to look that way, so we'll put them there.
Yeah.
And on our show, it's a big operation, right? It's a lot of people and a lot of kit and a lot of vehicles. But I wanted there to be this news coverage style helicopter news footage. So we had 2 drones up in the skies. And of course, you can see everything.
Yeah.
So there was nowhere to hide. So we had to actually hide the entire crew in the emergency response vehicles that you see in the scene. So the entire crew are in the scene, but you just can't see them. And I'm actually inside the back of this huge articulated police truck. That was actually an OB truck that we wrapped it in vinyl so it looked like a kind of police incident response vehicle. And I'm in there with about 1 million monitors and radios and my DP and our script supervisor and the sound team and like a ton of other people jammed into this truck with like 6 or 7 camera feeds coming through. We've got the entire cast of the show on the train, including Idris. They're in a tunnel. We've lost radio contact with them. I've got 2 drones up in the air. I've got like 1 million cameras pointing at the mouth of the tunnel. And I was like, this is like this is the actual live incident.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in the police truck. We're all standing around waiting for a hijacked train to come out of a tunnel, and we're not sure whether it's going to emerge or not. I was like, this is gone. We've like broken through the fourth wall here. Like, this is insane. Plus, I'm actually in the shot, because if you actually look at, I'm actually in it. I'm like, this is, my brain can't compute it. Anyway, suddenly, miracle of miracles, the train emerges from the tunnel. It's a hugely sort of ecstatic moment for everybody. And everything basically snapped into focus, and everything that we'd been planning worked. And of course it worked, because we'd been planning it for 9 months. But you don't take that for granted, that that's going to happen. And I remember turning to my right to Ed, my DP, who I've worked with on both seasons of Hijack and the show I made before that, Litvinenko. So we've been through a lot of stuff together. And I remember turning to him and just I didn't even say anything. I just looked at him, and he looked back at me. And that was a like, we made it moment. You know, that was a moment of like, this was really hard, and we pulled it off. And we pulled it off because people let us pull it off. And so that's like a really strong feeling, because you think the trust has been put in me to do this thing, both by the audience, you know, as the storyteller, by the studio as the showrunner, and by my collaborators, you know, pulling together to pull that off. And so that's a really powerful moment. And that means more to me than standing at a premiere or winning an award or getting another job or whatever. Like, to me, it's those moments where the hundreds of people that you've sort of brought along the way with you pull off this kind of mad heist. So yeah.
We've never had a "we made it" before, so that's
I love
really
that.
lovely. Yeah. I have one more question for you, because I know we need to wrap. But before I say that, I will say I've seen the finale, and this episode will come out after the finale has aired.
Okay, great.
But when everyone got on that bus, they were like safe, and then they got on a bus. I was like, you could not get me on a mode of transport. I would have walked home. Like, I would have been like, I'm gonna walk back. I don't care if it takes 3 hours, but I got so scared.
We had to get that joke in. As a Brit, like, whenever there's a problem on the underground, there's a thing called a bus replacement service or rail replacement service. And whenever there's like, you know, you hear from on the tannoy, like, there's now a bus replacement service. It's almost the worst thing you could possibly hear. I don't know why it's so bad, but it like feels like the worst thing that can happen to anybody. And so I was like, we've got to do a moment where, because of course they would lay on buses to get all the hostages you know, off to a hospital or whatever. Because of course they would lay on buses. We actually asked them, we spoke to the authorities there, and we were like, you know, what would happen in the situation? They said, you know, we'd requisition some buses. And I was like, this is perfect. And George, who's the character played by Paddy Holland, who doesn't want to get on the train in episode 1, gets on the bus and says to his teacher, oh, great, now we're getting on a bus.
I was so suspect of everybody that I thought that kid might have been behind it at one point.
Listen, anything is possible. And actually, that is how it's kind of to a certain extent how we write the show, you know. And it's the kind of Agatha Christie model where you sort of think, well, who's the least likely person to have pulled it off? And that's how you end up with Sam. You know, you go, you sit in a room and you go like, who's the maddest person to have pulled off this hijack? And of course, the ultimate answer to that question is Sam Nelson in our world. I made a show called Stag about this bachelor party, and when we started writing it, we didn't know who the perpetrator was going to be, because we wanted to we just had this fun idea. So we sort of started working on it, and at a certain point we were like, we really should figure out who of all of these people on this in this mad weekend, who's the reason. Because we didn't want it to ever be someone like an external person. Like in my shows, I never want the reveal to be like, oh, and actually there was this character that you've never met.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate that.
And so I always want the answer to be hiding in plain sight, because I want you to be able to go back and watch the show and see all the homework is there. Like in episode 1, if you go to the end of episode 1, Sam says at the end of episode 1, I'm hijacking this train. Now, you want there to be that visceral reaction from the audience of like, what are you talking
We
about?
all did at the premiere.
Yeah. But I also was like, the great thing about Apple with the weekly drops is you can't watch episode 2. You can't go, well, hang on, I'm going to watch episode 2 and find out. All you can do at that point is go back and rewatch episode 1. And to me, that would be like, I want people to do that. I want people to be like, what? He's not hijacking the train. That makes no sense. There's been no indication that that's what he's up to. And actually, if you go back and watch episode 1, knowing what you now know, everything he does in that episode is true to his actual role, which is hijacking the train. There's we didn't cut any corners. Like it's all there. And in Stag, I wanted the perpetrator to be one of the people on the weekend. And there's like 7 or 8 guys on this thing. And the absolute craziest person for it to have been would have been Ian, who's the protagonist in the show, who's the guy who's on a bachelor weekend, played by Jim Howick. He's on a bachelor weekend and he doesn't want to be there. He's the bride's brother. So he doesn't know the rest of them. He's not friends with them. He's not into blood sports. He's just a complete, like, I don't want to be here. And so he's kind of the audience's way through the show. So I was like, well, it can't be him. We don't want it to be him because he's going to be the guy that survives the weekend. So we were like, who's the next craziest person for it to be? And we were like, well, it's got to be the groom. And so then we just went, well, let's figure out how we can make it the groom. And that's the Agatha Christie model, is that you sort of write the whole thing and then you should, in theory, be able to change who the perpetrator is and then just go back and just tweak details to make it work. And actually, I learned a massive lesson making that show. As
Dwight Schrute from The Office the US Office, would say, it's always the person you most medium suspect.
Yes, yeah. And do you know what? That is like, that's the hardest thing with this show is that with Hijack, going into season 2, we knew that everybody would be like playing detective, right? So
yeah.
You're like, okay, well, everyone seems suspicious. And actually, if you're in the edit, you can just put a reaction shot of somebody with a bit of score underneath it. And suddenly it's like, and of course now with the traitors, which is everyone has got into.
Yeah.
We talked about that a lot in the writer's room, about traitors, because we were like, and actually there's an episode of Hijack, I think it's episode 5 of this season, which is basically our traitors episode, where everyone's trying to figure out who they can trust, because audiences are smart and they do pick up on stuff, but also because audiences are smart and they pick up on stuff, they can be misdirected quite easily as well. So I like kind of manipulating the expectations a little bit.
As soon as that woman was like, oh, are you this person? You have flowers. All of my female instincts went off. Like, I don't even answer my phone, hi, this is Emily anymore. Yeah. I just say hello because I don't want to like. So when she said, yes, that's me, I was like,
yeah. They were tricky. It was tricky hiding them. I mean, we have the other guy that shows up, Nick, who you're supposed to think is a bad guy. So we were able to kind of hide them behind him for a little bit. But there comes a point where you're like, they're so clearly the bad guys. So, but that's why I cast Jessica, who plays that part as well.
Yeah.
So that casting process was fun because I was like, she needs to be absolute sweetness and light, and you need to not suspect her, even though you did. But when she
that's just my mom telling me, like,
I mean, quite right, by the way.
Don't ever.
Quite right, Emily's mum. But. Yeah, and then she turns, and when she turns, you want to be like, "Oh, she's evil." So that was fun.
Well, I'll ask you our final question, which I also asked you and Idris. But if you had to give a chapter title to your career so far, what would it be?
I always used to like it in books when there was like a photo section.
Yeah,
you know, when you got a book and you could see that there were like pages in the middle that had photos, and I'd always like go ahead to those bits because I want to see the photos. I feel like I'm in that section right now.
Oh, that's so nice.
Because I'm sort of pausing for a moment. You know, I've spent 5 or 6 years making this show and another show before that and another show before that, and it's kind of punishing. I'm taking a bit of a moment to sort of reflect a little bit and I guess look at the pictures, you know, and sort of think, what's the next half of this book going to be after these pictures. We're often so caught up in such a fragile business, and everyone's always worrying about what's next, what their next job is. And often people are on a job and they are freaking out about what their next job's going to be, which means they're not focusing on what they're doing right now. And it's understandable for freelancers. It's really, really tough. But I'm trying to take a moment, and I'm lucky enough that I can do that right now, to take a moment to go like, I'm going to really think carefully about what's next, because, you know, I'm 46 years old. How many more films and TV shows am I going to make? I don't know, like 5, 6, 7. You know, I'm not going to be making 20 more TV shows in my career. So every one is going to really count, and every one takes a little bit of something out of you, and you have to put so much into it. So yeah, I'm just browsing the picture section at the moment, and I'll let you know what the next chapter is going to be called.
I think that's the most considered answer we've ever had to that question.
That's really, really nice.
Really good.
Well, thank you so much. I am still going to campaign for Hijack season 3 in the US.
Stop.
Hijack the musical.
Well, we've got the doorbell, so let's do it. Idris is trapped in a house where the doorbell drives him slowly insane.